Hi everyone, welcome to episode 91 of Wool and Spinning. As you can see, this is a live stream show for patrons of the community. I want to welcome you for joining me this afternoon and for being here. And for those who are watching from home later, I hope that you're doing well and that you're in front of your spinning wheel or maybe knitting away on something. And I hope that you're enjoying lots of crafty goodness in your life. We have a couple of giveaways to announce today, and we have a couple of giveaways, one giveaway to finish up. So we may as well just jump right into the show. I've got some spinning. That's our dog, that whistling. If she keeps making a lot of noise, I'll close the door. Charlotte, come here. We've got some spins in progress. Come on, Charlotte. Come here. Right here. Lay down. Lay down. We've got some spins in progress that I wanted to share with you, and I also have some progress on my knitted shawl. So I thought that I would sort of talk about some of those projects that I haven't talked about in a while. This is Charlotte. Some of you have met her before. She hasn't been on the show for a long time, but this is Charlotte. She's 11 years old. She's, as you can see, a golden retriever. And you're hungry, aren't you? Yes, she wants her lunch, but they don't get fed till about 1:30, so she's got a little bit longer that she needs to wait. She's been on the show before because she had some major surgery about a year and a half ago. Anyway, she's like a puppy again, and she's done really, really well. So a lot of people are surprised when they find out that she's 11. Hey, you don't look 11, do you? No, you don't look 11. If the camera wasn't so far away, I would actually adjust it and move it so that you could see her, but yeah, she's just the best dog in the world. And I hope that she lives forever, but I know that that's not realistic. Hey? Yeah, you're awesome. She actually was a show dog, and she won a lot of awards and whatnot when she was a young pup, when she was 2. But because she lived on concrete and was probably not treated really, really very well, because of course she was an asset. When we got her, she was quite in quite a bad way with her hips, and obviously she's had issues ever since. So we're happy to have her and happy to have her in our life, but she has had a lot of health issues and stuff, but she's just the best dog. So total sidetrack. Anyways, so we've got some spins in progress and some knitting in progress, and like I said, I've got these giveaways. So let's start off with the giveaways. Now I've got dog all over me. Okay, so we had the Montadale that we were giving away, and I'm not going to flip the cameras around and stuff just yet, but this was the Montadale. We've been kind of giving it away through February, and you guys talked in the Ravelry channel about, in the February episode thread, about who you like to spin with, and you guys had all sorts of different things to share, and lots of you actually, I was surprised how many people spin alone or to podcasts, which was really cool. There was actually more of you than I thought that there would be, so that was kind of neat to see. Anyways, the Montadale is going to Paleo PT. I'm assuming it's physio or maybe patient, but Paleo physio. I don't know what your name is or where you're located or anything just because of your Ravelry page, but I'll send you a message unless you see this first. And if not, if you do, can you get in touch with me and send me your address, and I'll pop this in the mail for you. So congratulations to Paleo Patient or Paleo Physio. I have no idea. But it's Paleo PT. So congratulations. We also have the Patreon calendar to give away. So every month I give away a calendar. It looks like this. It's got inspirational photos and a whole bunch of stuff, and it's this version of it. So this was the sort of first generation, quote unquote, that I had given away, and I actually had them reprinted so that this newer version actually starts in July. So I think the first date there is July, and then they go through until June of 2019, which is kind of cool. So this month it is going out to, and you can see all the photos in there. This month is going out to Denise Roberge, and actually Denise lives locally to me. She lives just up in Squamish, which some of you will know that name because Squamish was one of the cities that hosted a lot of the Olympic athletes when Vancouver hosted the Vancouver 2010 Olympics. So she lives up in Squamish, and I'll be popping that in the mail for you, Denise. Don't worry about getting in touch with me. I'll just pop it in the mail for you. So congratulations, Denise. So that's kind of exciting, giving away 2 things. The March giveaway is going to be 4 ounces of pencil roving, and this actually isn't really the right color. So maybe yeah, this is right. If I hold it up here, this is the right color. I'll leave some other things down here for you guys to look at. This is 4 ounces. I actually have 2 of these. This is 4 ounces of pencil roving. It's Superwash BFL. It's by my friend Marianne. She's the dyer behind Smith & You, which is located up in Kamloops, British Columbia, which is about 3 hours north of here. I had bought these 2 hanks of fiber to do a shawl, and my plan was to do 2. I was going to spin 1 to one bobbin, 1 to the other bobbin, and I was going to ply them together for a 2-ply, and I was going to do a shawl. But I actually really want to use the other one for socks instead, because I have another one of these pencil rovings, 2 of them actually, that I had spun into socks that from Marianne, and I just love them. So I decided instead that I would give this one away and I would spin the other one. So this month's prompt will be what you're seeing, whether what the first signs of spring are in your area of the world. And if you are transitioning into fall, if you're in the southern hemisphere, maybe you can share with us what the first signs of fall are for you, where you are. So it's a little bit different. It's not really spinning related or fiber related, but maybe it's the sheep on your farm lambing. You know, be creative and tell us what the first signs of spring are for you, or what the first signs of fall are for you, because I know my friend Katie, she's down under, she's going into her fall. So that is for March. You can pop your answers into the March episode thread, which will be posted up in Ravelry later today. So for those who received the show today, those who are Patreon subscribers will see the show. If you missed the live stream, you're going to be watching the show later this afternoon, and you can pop your answers in there while you think about it and before you forget. And we'll award this on the first episode in April. So that is that. And it's Superwash BFL, and it's awesome for socks. And it's because the pencil roving, I will give a little plug for Marianne's fiber. This fiber is kind of neat because you can actually, let me see if I can show you here. You can actually take the whole thing and split it so that you've got the 4 ounces. You can split it down into the whole length of the pencil roving. You can strip like that, and then by the end you've got like 2 bumps of 2 ounces each of fiber, and then you spin 1 to one bobbin, 1 to the other bobbin, and 2-ply them. Or you just can spin really, really fine 3-ply sock yarn with that. So what I really like to do is spin it all to one bobbin and then Navajo ply it. So you've got lots of options there, and basically you can just play. So make sure you pop your answers into the Ravelry thread. I made coffee. So just before we move on with the show, I made coffee when I got home just now from dropping Nora off at school. And I made it at like 20 minutes ago, but I steamed the cashew milk that I put in it, and now it is so hot and I can't drink it. It's still like burning hot and I just really want to drink it. I feel like I should have like thrown like an ice cube in it or something, which is so crazy, but I just really want to enjoy it and I can't. So there you have it. First world problems, right? I have this lovely hot coffee and I'm complaining. It's just ridiculous. All right, let's get into the show. So I thought the first thing that I would talk about, just because we might kind of fall down a little bit of a rabbit hole with this, and we might not, but we might, because I know us and I know what we're like in our community. I'm going to switch my cameras around. I started a new project, and let me just switch the cameras because then you'll really be able to see. And I don't know if Eve is around today, but I know Eve always reminds me about switching the cameras. So because I know it's a lot easier to see when you can actually, you know, have this up and big and you're not staring at my head. So I'm spanning this on my Lundrum, and you're probably wondering what it is because it's so super stinking shiny. I actually delved into my stash. I had spun up that cotton, and one of the things that we had talked about was at the beginning of the year was sort of delving into some of these topics and some of these spinning projects in a little bit more detail. So like through January, February, and March, the Patreon content was really delving into the color study and really like pulling it apart. And we had people onto Woolen Spinning Radio who had sort of who could sort of shed some light on managing color and combo spins, and the March show, which is going to be released tomorrow to everybody. It's just early access right now, but it'll be out tomorrow for everyone. Is sort of getting into more of the details around that process and those projects and whatnot. And I think you guys will really enjoy this month's Woolen Spinning Radio episode. I being unbiased and trying to like, you know, be neutral, I think it's actually one of the best episodes that I've ever recorded. And I think it was just because everybody brought so much knowledge and information, and the conversation just really flowed about the color studies. So that's kind of what this year is about. It's sort of about like really delving in and really trying to rummage around. That was our overarching theme, rummage around in these things and in these projects that, you know, I was really feeling last year like I was throwing this stuff on my wheel, and I was spinning away all these projects, and it was sort of just like a countdown to being able to start the next project. Like, you know, finish this project, get on to the next one, and so on. And this year I wanted to really savor my projects and really kind of rummage around in them. And so I planned them out for the year. And, you know, I can change course and I can decide that maybe I want to do something else. But for sort of the most of the year, I really wanted to sort of really rummage around in some of this stuff. So after I did the cotton, I thought, you know, the next 3 months, so April, May, and June, I really wanted to focus on plant-based fibers. So all of the content that's going to be coming out over the next few months, or most of it anyways, is going to sort of focus around plant-based fibers. And I had taken that BAST course workshop at Anwig back in July, and I talked about it a lot on the podcast afterwards because it really opened up this whole like other type of fiber and this whole other branch of fiber that I really hadn't considered before. I had cotton in my stash, but I really hadn't sat down and really tried to spin it very seriously. And then of course the bast fibers are just so neat when you really start to rummage around and delve into them. So Ramie is one of the bast fibers, and it's actually one of the fibers that we spun in that workshop. And it was really interesting because in that workshop there were 3 participants and then the instructor. And of the participants, me and one other woman who was actually from Saskatchewan, we were sort of what I would consider quite advanced spinners. And, you know, we had a lot of knowledge and we had lots and lots to share. And the instructor was obviously very advanced. And she has her master spinner from Olds College in Alberta. And she had just a ton of knowledge to share and lots of information to pass on. And then one of the participants, so the third participant in the class was a true beginner. She didn't know what she didn't know. She'd never spun anything really other than a little bit of fiber that had come with her wheel. And she had bought an Ashford Kiwi, mostly because of the price point and mostly because when she sat down at it, she could use it, which I think when you're a new spinner is a big deal. I remember sitting down at my first wheel and I just absolutely couldn't spin at it. But then I sat down at a Lundrum and I could actually spin. So that's a big deal. So she didn't know what she didn't know, and she was such an empty vessel, right? Like she was just like whatever knowledge she could absorb. And so here we are spinning the bast fibers, which are quite advanced and they're quite difficult in some ways to spin until you sort of learn how to manipulate them and how to manage them. And it was really funny because my favorite fiber that we spun in that workshop was hand combed Ramie Tussa silk combed together, and it was sort of an 80-20 that she got us to mix together, and then she got us to also do a 50-50 and then to just spin off the comb. And I actually had shared those photos on Instagram way back in the summer of myself doing that, and I think I talked about it on the show too, that it was just my most favorite fiber I'd ever spun in my entire life. And one of the No, silk is a protein fiber. It's not considered an animal. I don't think it's considered an animal product by most people, but it is. Well, that's not true because of the moths. Anyways, it's a protein fiber. Silk is not a plant-based fiber, and it acts more like a protein too. Vegans don't use silk because of the cocoons and taking away the they're interfering with the natural process. So anyways, especially the one that kills the larvae, which I think is mulberry silk. Like I won't even go near mulberry silk. So that one is where they actually kill the larvae inside of the silk cocoons. So anyways, Tussa silk is sort of the one that they just harvest it from the larvae. If there's somebody in the community that knows a bit more, don't hesitate to hop into the chat and I'll read it out what you say. I've just started reading about some of this stuff to get more information. And sort of what the processes are all about. So that I can speak to it with a bit more knowledge, because my knowledge is very rudimentary. So I'm always careful about silk to say too much because I don't know what I don't know. Right. So one of the hanks of fiber that, actually 3 of the hanks of fiber that our instructor had at the workshop was Ramie, and she had just spun it like from I think this is half a pound. Half a pound. This is actually from Louette. It's one of at the time, and I don't know now because of course they aren't doing fiber anymore. It was one of the only sources for Ramie. Ramie's not particularly, it's not easy to get anymore. Because it's a very, very difficult bast fiber to cultivate and to get. It's very, very labor intensive, and it's not popular. So if people aren't buying it, they're not gonna, they're not gonna cultivate it. It comes from China, and traditionally, how to grow and cultivate and harvest Ramie has been passed down from family to family and generation to generation. But of course, the newer generation, and this is happening everywhere in the world, it's not just Ramie, the newer generation doesn't want to do the work because it's very, very physically demanding work. It's very hard work. And Ramie really can't go through machines like flax can. Ramie really needs to be cultivated by hand. So it does tend to be a little bit more expensive. Like this half-pound bag, I think was $25 US, which isn't very expensive, but when you think about all of what this went through to get to my hands, in some ways it's probably actually not enough in terms of pricing. I have spun hemp, Kelly. I actually have some upstairs in my stash, and I really like it. Depending on the source, I really didn't enjoy spinning bleached hemp because the fibers are a little bit broken down and it's just not as nice. And then I spun some natural hemp, and it was just lovely. And actually, that's one of the fibers that I would like to get into next. It's in my bag of things to spin this year. Anyway, so with the Ramie, you can see that like it really wants to sort of fall apart, and it's very wispy, and it's sort of, so you can wet spin it. You can actually get some water and you can put it on your fingers and you can wet spin it. I've been spinning it dry, mostly just because I've just been experimenting and playing. And the 3 skeins that my instructor had in the workshop, she had actually dry spun all of them. And she was just really, generous with the twist and really made sure that the fiber, that she was smoothing it down and really spinning it. And you can see how like it just gets all of these like fuzzy bits. I wonder if you can see it under here. You see how it gets so really fuzzy and it starts to kind of fall apart. And it doesn't really love like all of that. Like it just gets really, really fuzzy and really, it just wants to fall apart in your hands. So what I've been doing is these shortcut pieces like this, I've actually just been taking them out because they're a little bit hard to spin and they're quite rough. They don't feel nice in your hands, and they're sort of they're all tangled and sort of knotted. It's almost like a dreadlock in a human hair. And because this is a plant-based fiber, they don't really have a staple length. It's really the length of the fiber that was harvested from the plant. So it's Ramie happens to be quite long, but it's when I pull it apart, which I don't want to, when you pull it apart, there are varying lengths within the fiber. So really what I've been trying to do is just pull a certain number of fibers every time and add the twist as I go, and sort of spin it by gently just teasing it forward and adding the twist and keeping it quite fine, even finer than this on my wheel, and then stripping it down so that I have like these little nests. Wow. So that I have these little nests of fiber that are quite a bit smaller than spinning from this big bundle of fiber down here. So I can sort of get through one of these little nests and sort of hand pull this apart to sort of put it back together and make it nice again as I spin. And it's giving me a really smooth, nice yarn. Let's find a part of the bobbin. Like down here, it's very, it's difficult to see because it's white. And of course it's got this incredible sheen on it. But all, like, it's very, very, very fine. It's going to be really like lace weight. So, I don't know how long this is going to take me to spin. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill up this bobbin, or at least get it like 3/4 of the way full. And I'm going to sort of do the same thing that I did with the cotton, and I'm going to sort of ply it, and see what I've got and what I want to do, whether I want to continue spinning it this way, whether I want to change it up and try something else. I actually have 2 of these 1/2 pound bags. So my original plan was to spin all of it and make there's a word that I'm looking for. Not a heritage shawl, but a what's that word? An heirloom shawl, and do something really like a square hap. But you're talking about like years of spinning. Like there's just so much spinning here to do. So I thought, well, if I ply some of this, that would give me a really good sample skein. And then I could just sort of work on it, as I sort of get to it. And as I work on it over the course of sort of the next number, I know it sounds crazy to take on a spinning project that's going to be like years. Yeah, Becca, you know where I was going. She threw out the word heirloom. She knew. I sort of thought, well, maybe I could just sort of chip away at it because there's so much fiber that fits because it's spun so finely. Like this is already several hours of spinning, like quite a few hours of spinning, in fact. And you have to put so much twist in it because there is no scales. There's nothing to hold the fiber together except for twist. It's the same, like Sharon just mentioned in the live chat about that she's struggling with 100% bamboo. None of this stuff has scales like wool does. So it's only the twist that's going to hold it together. So when you look at these yarns when they're spun, they're really high twist. They need a lot more twist than people think. It's the same with cotton. It doesn't need so much twist that you end up with like this really awful overspun thing, but they do need quite a bit of twist. I don't know if you can leave Ramie as a singles. Our instructor was really, she was really knowledgeable, and one of the things that she kept saying over and over and over again was the bast fibers in particular are generally 2-plied. Linen is sort of the exception to that because people do weave with linen singles, but for the most part, they're all 2-plied, and that's sort of what is expected. And you wouldn't ply this from the bobbin as is, so I wouldn't spin my 2 bobbins and then ply them, because with these fibers, I'll get a bigger one to show you. They have a nap and a nap. So, sorry, a nap. So you don't want to spin one way and then ply back the other way because you've spent all that time smoothing and making sure that everything is smooth and worsted, because you tend to spin these, unless you've got tow, which is the waste of linen, of flax, you normally spin these worsted. And so you spend all that time smoothing and creating this really smooth yarn, and then you go and ply it back on itself, and you're plying the opposite way, and you're going to rough up all that stuff, and you're not going to have a smooth yarn to finish. So you actually, when I'm finished spinning this, I need to wind this off so that it's actually going back the other way, and then I can ply the 2-ply, and then I'll have a really smooth yarn. So it really does matter which end you ply from. You want to first spun, first plied. If you haven't heard that saying, file that one away, because it's really important with the bast fibers. I'm getting lots of questions in the chat channel, which is just awesome. I knew we were kind of fall down a bit of a rabbit hole with this one, so I'm just going to have a look and we'll start talking. And I'll focus my camera too. What ratio am I spinning on? So with the Lendrum, I only have about 8 ratios to choose from. So I'll spin around and grab it. I'm actually using my lace flyer, or the fast flyer. Sorry, it's not the lace flyer, the fast flyer. So that's this one here. And those are my ratios at the front there. So on my Lendrum, I'll just sort of move it here. I have 12-to-1, 15-to-1, and then 17-to-1 down here. So I'm actually spinning it at 17-to-1. In some ways, I wish I was spinning it on my Suzy Pro, and I might switch over to my Suzy because I could spin it at 20.4-to-1 or 28-to-1. And I'm really feeling that's very labor intensive, and I'm finding I'm having to put a lot of twist into it, and I'm having to like work hard, like treadle a lot to get that twist in, to hold everything together. So after I'm finished with this big sample skein, I may switch over to my Suzy and just keep one bobbin aside, because the Suzy bobbins are huge, and just keep one bobbin reserved for spinning this fiber, since I'm going to have to wind them off onto weaving bobbins and storage bobbins anyways, so that I can ply from the first spun. Because this is the difference between my Suzy bobbins, these are my Magicraft bobbins, and this is my Lendrum bobbin. So I could just work away on my Suzy bobbin for a long time and fill this up, and then pull off the fiber as I fill up the bobbin, and then store it on my weaving bobbins until I'm eventually ready to ply. So there's a lot that goes into these really, really big spins. Like a project like this, I find anyways, I need to spend a lot of time thinking about it, and like really kind of mulling over, like, how am I going to manage my bobbins, and which wheel am I going to spin the entire project on, and you know, how big do I want my sample skein to be? Do I want to be able to use my sample skein to have a sample skein, but also have a knitted sample and a woven sample off of that skein? So that needs to be a bigger skein. How much fiber do I want to sort of sacrifice to that project? And then how long do I expect to be working on that project for? You know, am I going to work on it like this project, which we'll talk about after, where I've got a lot of fiber and I'm just going to plow through and just spin it until it's done? Or am I going to savor it and take my time? And yeah, it's probably going to take 1.5 years to spin. So I find, like, when I'm sort of organizing these bigger projects, that I need to take a lot of that into consideration, and I need to think about it. So thankfully you guys are sort of hearing some of that thought process here, but I don't think people really realize necessarily how much some of these projects, how much some of the planning takes. Okay, let's answer some more questions. So so that takes care of the ratio question. Does it matter which direction you spin it in initially, or do you just want to ply it in the same direction you spun? You don't want to ply in the same direction. It's the same as wool. You want to ply in the opposite direction. So if you spin it Z, you want to ply in S, and vice versa. A lot of people do spin their bast and plant-based fibers. They spin them opposite to how most people spin wool. So, excuse me. So most people spin, I think sort of conventionally, most people spin to the right clockwise for their singles. I mean, which end of the pot? Oh, okay, fair enough, Rebecca. I'll answer that in a second. So with wool, most people spin clockwise and then ply anti-clockwise. So in the S twist direction, and then they ply Z. Right? Yeah, that's right. With the plant-based fibers, most people do it the opposite way. So they spin their singles anti-clockwise and then they ply clockwise. I don't know if there's a reason for that particularly, but that does seem to be the trend. I personally am doing it the conventional way. I'm spinning clockwise and I'm going to ply anti-clockwise. And then which end of the top so there is a nap, like I said. So what I was told by our instructor is to just check. So when you pull the fibers, if they pull really easily, you're at the right end of the fiber. If they don't pull easily, you want to go to the other end of the fiber. Next question, which is the best plant fiber to start with? You know, I'm not an expert in plant fibers, and I know a lot of people who spin a lot of plant fibers would say anything, spin whatever, just whatever you can get your hands on, and just recognize that there's going to be a number of hours of sort of struggle and getting used to it before it really flows for you. And I would agree with that. Like, it took me that first day of the 3-day workshop to really get the hang of it and to really embrace it. And even now, if I spin wool and then go back to spinning this, it takes me a while to kind of get into a flow and get into a rhythm. But in terms of sort of the most affordable, so that you don't feel like you're sort of wasting fiber, I would pick up something that you really, really, you know, that you like, that isn't too much money, that you sort of think that, yeah, I could muddle around with that for a little while. You know, some cotton. Ramie is quite difficult, but flax isn't too bad. Linen's not too bad to spin. You wrap it in a tea towel. We'll be talking about that next month. And there'll be some more information on that. There's a couple of really good books out there, which I'll bring down from upstairs because I'm reading them right now. So they're on my bedside table. And I can share some of that with you next month. And there's some really good resources out there. So hopefully over the next couple months, we'll kind of be delving into some of that a little bit more on the show. First spun, first plied question mark. Is that basically the first end spun is the first end plied? Exactly. So if you spun, so if you do a center pull ball, okay, so take this strip of fiber, okay? If I spin from this end and I do a center pull ball, I'm basically taking the fiber and I'm folding it back on itself to ply it. Now, if you spin from this end and you do a traditional 2-ply and you spin from this end and then you have another one just exactly like this and you spin that to a bobbin, you're actually, if you just go to ply and you don't do anything with your singles, you're actually plying from this end. So you're starting to ply from the opposite end. So what you want to do, particularly with the plant-based fibers, and the real purists will say to do this with wool as well, is to wind your singles onto a storage bobbin or onto a weaving bobbin or even onto another spinning bobbin. So you can put it on your Lazy Kate and just feed it through your wheel so that you get back to the other end, and then you ply from this end that you started at. That's first spun, first plied. I hope that makes sense. Just say if it doesn't. Looking forward to seeing your final stats on those singles, TPI, wrap sprint, short forward. So I'm actually spinning short forward, and my twists per inch, I have no idea what they are. I'm going to sort of calculate some of that stuff after I've actually got the skein in front of me, because I'm more focused on the actual skill of spinning and not worrying too much about the technical. But the wraps per inch when I do a plyback test is about 14, I think, 14 or 16. So sport weight. So we'll see what the actual skein ends up being. We'll see. Well, all the time resting on the bottoms cause. I don't think so, Sharon. The trick with rested singles is that you have a sample. So this is a good example because it's for my other project. That you have a sample of your spun yarn that you can put next to your yarn as you're plying, to compare the twist angle to make sure that you're putting in enough twist. So a skein like this. Oh, hang on. I seem to be like, you know how like some days you have like that acuity of being able to like figure out where the cameras are and what's going on and stuff. And like today I just cannot figure it out for the life of me. Sorry, I'm just going to do it manually because it's just not focusing. I guess it's just, there we go. I just move my hand a little bit away. So if you have a skein like this sitting on your lap as you're plying, and you've got your rested singles, you can put this next to the yarn that you're plying and compare the twist angle and make sure that you're putting in enough twist so that when you, because what usually ends up happening is rested singles, you typically end up underspun, underplied, and it's just because they've been resting, and you need to put in as much twist as you would otherwise, but usually people just don't put in enough twist. So having a sample skein and comparing your twist angle is really helpful so that you know that you're putting in enough twist. Good question though, Sharon, because you know, I mean, you would worry about like other issues around having a skein resting like that, or having bobbins resting, like moisture and you know, making sure that you're looking after them for sure, and that they're not getting damaged. But there's really no other reason. I mean, when you think about it, some of the really big spins that I've even done on the show, and some of the people in our community, you know, sometimes we're spinning for like a year or more. So when you think about it, I mean, there's really no reason, like that's sort of okay. The reason why I haven't put it on my Susie yet is because I've actually been working on this. So I'm not going to talk too much about this today. Maybe I'll hold this up. This is big bag. I'm not going to talk about it too much today, but this is actually my friend Katrina. You guys know Katrina. She's your friend too. Katrina's Harvest colorway. Harvest Moon, I think it's called. I haven't written on my card yet. And I've been making these nests of fiber, and I'm actually hoping to spin this up at Fibers West, which is a big fiber festival coming up here in later in the month, March 23rd and 24th, I think. And I'm hoping to spin on that weekend. This is a mix of vegan cashmere, which is a synthetic microfiber, combed, hackled with the BFL. So in the Harvest Moon colorway. So, and you guys know this is my favorite color. So I'm hoping I can get this spun up and work on it. I'm really excited about that spin, but it's a bit of a teaser because I'll talk about it next show. Because I think when we live stream next time, let me double check because I might be misleading you. Fibers West will have just happened, or it will be happening. Yeah, it will be happening that week. So I'll be getting prepared for, because I'm going to be in Katrina's booth helping out that weekend, and I'm going to take my wheel and I'm going to work on that when it's a little bit, you know, less busy in those moments that we have where we're sort of just standing and chatting. So I may as well take something and get something done. So I'll tell you more about that project next time. Does anybody have any more questions about the Ramie before we move on? Because I am cognizant of the time, and I just, I know we kind of fell down a rabbit hole with that one, but it was really fun because it's such a great fiber to talk about. In the meantime, while you guys think about that, this project, I talked about this last show. Did I talk about this last show? This is the fiber that I dyed at home after I took that course at Maiwa back in 2015. And it's this sock fiber that's this, it's a merino alpaca nylon silk blend. It's, my nose is just, it cannot handle the alpaca because it's 20% alpaca. And it's just like, oh, right in my, I can't handle alpaca. Like I've always been sensitive to it, but now I'm like really sensitive to it. So I'm not sure I'm really going to be able to spin a lot of alpaca in my future. And I have some baby llama in my stash that I really want to pull out and work on. So I'm hoping, I just want to spin that up, and then I won't have any more alpaca hanging around because, man, it really bugs my nose. I start to cough and sneeze, and it does not make me happy. So this is on my Ashford e-spinner, and it's almost done. I was really hoping that I would have my singles done today. I was like, you know, so excited to show you guys 2 full bobbins of singles because I'm not actually totally sure how much fiber is here. Like I don't actually know what the weight is, and I only have this left to spin, and I just couldn't get it done. So next time. But yeah, the alpaca is just driving me batty. So I am looking forward to it being done. And I'm going to ply it on my Ashford. And then that'll be my first complete spin on the Ashford, which is kind of fun. So it'll be like the first, alpaca. It's now all in my nose. It'll be my first sort of start to finish project. So that'll be really fun. Does anybody have any questions about that? That's a good question, actually, Becca. So she was wondering if maybe some spinning oil might help with the alpaca sensitivity. That's a great idea. I'll try that next time because I've just got this last bump left. So I think I'll try that with my baby llama spin because it's a baby llama Tussa silk blend, and it's pin drafted roving, and the silk is just like put through, and it's yellow with this natural taupey brown baby llama. It's from my friend Marg, who has a farm just up here in Langley, and I think I'll try that next time with that spin, because that's, how big is that spin? I think it's just over a pound. I bought all of the fiber that she had because it was all that she had left, and I think it was just over a pound. Yeah, how many pounds are in? How many grams are in a pound? 454. I think it's like 475 or something like that grams. So yeah, I really want to spin it, but I'm also, the thing is, Kelly said that she'd be so bummed if alpaca bugged her. That it is so mild here most of the time that I actually can't wear alpaca very much. Like I spun and knit that Snoqualmie shawl, and it was 75-25 or 80-20 BFL alpaca. I've only worn it once or twice because it is so warm. I cannot wear it here in our climate. It's just too warm. And once I put my raincoat on top, I am sweltering because I'm a really warm person. Like I'm naturally warm. Since my pregnancies, before we had our kids, I was cold all the time. And then once we had our kids, after James, I kind of went back to being kind of cold, and my feet were always cold. It used to drive my husband crazy. And then we got pregnant with Nora, and basically I knew I was pregnant with her because all of a sudden my feet were warm, my hands were warm, and I felt like I was just like needed like all the layers, like just get all the layers off of me. And sure enough, I was pregnant, and I've never cooled down ever since. I've been hot ever since, and it's kind of nice, but it's limited. Like I can't wear alpaca, so which I guess is okay since I'm a bit sensitive to it, anyways. But anyways, rabbit hole. We always get going down rabbit holes. It's all because of the live chat. All right, so I showed this to you guys. Did I show you this last time? My shawl. Did I show this to you last time? The only reason why I'm showing it to you again, this was the fiber that my friend Charlotte dyed. She works at Sweet Georgia Yarns, and she dyed it. She just poured a whole bunch of dye on, and I'm pretty sure I showed this to you guys last time. It's just Superwash BFL. It's nothing special, but I just loved the colors, and I think I showed you a photo on my phone. Yeah, Liz is saying yeah that I showed you. So the reason why I'm showing you this time, because I had showed you about the little hack to be able to sew up this if you don't want to do a garter tab cast on. The reason why I'm showing you is because I'm finally on to the second ball. So I had 2 skeins of this yarn that I had spun up, and I think I showed it to you last time. Let me just find it here because I wanted to look at my final yardage that I had. And so I had said that I was going to follow the pattern that I had set out until I got to the second skein, and then I was just going to do a massive garter stitch border. So so I finally got there. It's only taken an entire season of soccer, and soccer is over on Saturday this week. So we've got practice tomorrow night, and then we've got one more soccer game, and that's it. We're done. Oh, I never calculated my yardage for this yarn. Bummer. Oh, that's too bad. So I had this one bigger skein, and then I had this smaller skein. So it looked like this. Let's see if you can see that on there. So I had the one bigger skein that's the one on top, and then I had the smaller skein that was on the bottom. And the top one was roughly sort of 80 grams, and then the one on the bottom was about 20 grams. So now that I'm finally there, I'm just going to start garter stitching back and forth and back and forth. So I just finished the last pattern repeat here. So there's the little bit of stockinette and then 2 garter stitch ridges, and then I'm just going to garter stitch from here on out. So luckily I was at the end of a row. I didn't even think about whether I was at a end of a row or anything last night when I finished. Oh, I was watching a movie last night. I never watch movies ever. And I was watching a movie last night and I was like, well, I'm just sitting here and I haven't really been working on my stuff in the evenings, and I think it's just the days are busy and I'm tired, and I go to the gym super early in the morning. So like by the time it's like 8 o'clock at night, the last thing I want to do is engage in anything. I mostly just want to read. And I've been reading a ton lately. And so last night I decided to rewatch a movie that I had seen a couple of years ago. And I didn't even think about that I needed to make sure I was at the end of a row for the show today. So thank goodness I was at the end of a row. So now I'm going to go back and I'm just going to keep going in garter stitch until this hank runs out. And it's funny because actually it looks like it's a really big ball of yarn, but it's actually not. I've already taken out a huge amount from it to finish up this last section, because I joined back here at this last garter stitch section. So I've already done about 6 rows already. And these are really long rows now. Like I don't know how many stitches are on here now. I'm going to write up the recipe when I'm done. And I'll publish this as a recipe when I'm done, because it's just so pretty and it's so simple, and it would be great for any weight of hand spun. Because like if you had like Aran weight hand spun but you wanted to do a shawl like this, you could just cast on the same number of stitches but use like massive needles. So you know, if you have Aran weight yarn, instead of knitting it on like 5.5 or 6 millimeter needles, you could go up to like 9 millimeter needles. I have no idea what size that is in US sizing. If somebody knows, you can pop it in the chat channel. Like you go up to like 9 millimeter or even 10 millimeter needles, and then just knit until you get to the point where you want to add the garter stitch border, do the garter stitch border, and then make sure you have enough to cast off and you're good to go. Or you could, like this is sport weight yarn and I'm knitting on 3.75 needles. You could spin like fingering weight yarn to knit, and if you want to use it all up and you've got like a ton of yardage, you could knit it on like 3 millimeter needles and knit until you're happy with it, and then add your garter stitch border. So it's like super versatile, you know, and it's just like such a simple recipe. So I'll write it up when I'm done, and I'll pass that along to you guys. How do you use and purchase spinning oil? Great question, Sharon. So most people use Neat's Foot. A lot of people use it on their saddles. So any saddlery that you know of that sells saddles or anything to do with like riding will often carry it, and you can usually get it in quite big bottles, but it's better to see if they'll sell you like just a little bit, because you don't need a lot. And you just get it, or buy a big bottle and split it with all of your spinning friends. You just need like a little bottle, and I actually don't have any right here with me. I keep it in my toolbox. But it's, you know, if you put it in like a little flask like this, and then at the top, you just put your hand over top and flip it upside down, and then put it aside, and you can work it into your hands. And then when you're spinning, and you really want to work it into your fingers, when you're spinning, it just smooths the fibers down. So anything that's like really staticky, I'm probably going to have to use some for spinning this because of the vegan cashmere, because I was finding when I was hackling, it was even like really staticky, and it just smooths everything down. And then when you go to, it's a water soluble oil, so when you go to wash it, it just comes right off. And some people add a little bit of like lavender to it, or they'll like make it scented. You don't have to, it's just up to you if you like aromatherapy, but that's usually what people are talking about. Oh, US size 5 is 9 millimeter needles. Thank you, Liz. I can weigh it, what I have left in, oh yeah. So you're right, Kelly. So what I was going to do to figure out the yardage was, I was actually going to, because when I cast off, I'll have some left over. Wah! I was actually going to calculate my grist. So I'll figure out what a yard of this is and how much that weighs. And then or maybe there'll be a couple of yards left, hopefully. And then I can weigh the shawl and I'll figure out what my grist is. And based on the weight of the shawl, I'll know what my yardage was roughly. But yeah, exactly, Kelly. That's what I was going to do. US size 5 is 3.5 millimeters. Sorry, it's US size 13. Awesome. Thanks, guys. So US size 13, 9 millimeter needles. So is it 10 millimeter or US size 14 then? Because like if you had an Aran weight yarn, you could just cast it on like US size 13 or 14. So 9 millimeter or 10 millimeter. And then you'd have like this big drapey open shawl. And actually, funnily enough, years ago, there was a yarn shop in Vancouver, and they had on display for years a shawl knit out of Cascade Ecological before the Eco yarn came out. It was when it was still just the Ecological and it was only available in the natural colors. And of course, it's sort of marketed as an Aran weight yarn, sort of a light Aran heavy worsted. And they had knit it up on massive needles, and they'd knit up part of the pattern of the swallowtail shawl. I don't know if you guys remember that pattern. It was all the rage back in like 2007, 2008. And they didn't do the bottom lace section. They only did the first pattern repeat, like the first lace chart. It looked awesome and it was huge. And ever since then, I've always wanted to knit a shawl like that, and I just haven't. And I think they used like an entire Cascade Ecological ball, which is like I think those are, how big are those? They're like 450 yards or something. US size 15 is 10 millimeter. Okay. And it was like, it used the whole ball. And the number of times that I thought about just buying a thing of Ecological just to make that project. But I never ever did. And I never spent the money. But I've always thought, because I've got some really sort of heavier yarn in my stash from when I first started spinning. And I've often thought that I should do something like that and just use super big needles and just do like natural stripes. So when the yarn runs out, just attach the next yarn and so on. But I've just never done anything about it. I think that is everything for today. Like the show is starting to get a bit long. Does anybody have any questions about anything? Anything that they want to know about? Yeah, I love lace motifs in really heavy yarn. I just think they look amazing as well, Becca. They look so cool. And it's funny, I think they really are show-stopping, like for non-knitters when they see stuff like that. I think it's almost more, especially because a lot of that chunky stuff is really popular, and it's been popular for a really, really long time. It doesn't seem to be going out. It just looks cool, you know, and it's not so heavy. Like it's bulky and it's chunky, but generally they're not quite as big, because you just don't need as much yarn to make something that's pretty substantial. So you can use big needles and have these big yarn overs, and then you don't have quite as heavy of a shawl, which is kind of neat. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today. The show's sort of getting up there to an hour, so I want to say goodbye and sign off. I hope you have a wonderful week. We have beautiful weather outside, so I'm hoping to go for a run later. And I hope wherever you are that you're enjoying spinning and knitting and all the things that we love to do. And until next time, happy spinning. Bye, guys.